What if I told you there's a cult that lives on a remote island that worships America? A cult cut off from the rest of the world, who worships a man who probably never existed. Well, in this video, I turn up to a cult uninvited.
Somebody die here?
I try some trippy plant juice with the chief.
I do have a really bad gag reflex.
And discover some insane truths about the world's strangest cult. Strap in. Usually when people think of cults, they think of dangerous groups who target vulnerable people, usually for money or power, but probably not a group of people who worship an entire country. The cult in question is John Frum, but what interested me about John Frum is how they came to be in the first place. The John Frum cult are based on an island called Tanna in Vanuatu, home of one of the world's most active volcanoes, a beautiful rainforest landscape, and located in one of the happiest countries on Earth. But to paint a picture on how the cult came to be, I need to take you back in time. During World War II, the American military were hopping across islands in the Pacific, creating military bases in a bid to stop Japan from expanding their reach.
Transporting supplies and equipment thousands of miles from their home bases. The Devil Dogs are at home in any climate.
In May 1942, one of the islands they landed on was Tanna in Vanuatu. Until this point, the tribes that lived there were mostly cut off from modern civilization. But very soon after the Americans arrived, these tribes were experiencing a very overwhelming influx of the outside world for the very first time. Huge ships, thousands of foreign men, giant metal birds dropping boxes of supplies from the sky. Imagine you're living on a remote island, you've never seen modern technology before, then all of a sudden the jungle opens up and your island's population is doubled with white men all extremely busy doing stuff you don't really understand. To the locals, it must have felt like some sort of magic. However, when the war ended, the Americans left abruptly with zero explanation. And just like that, the cargo stopped. But the obsessions with how the Americans acted on the island remained. In the years after, the locals built fake runways, bamboo watchtowers, and even mock rifles, seemingly solidifying their belief that the cargo is somehow connected to the way that the Americans were acting. In my head, that makes sense. When the Americans leave, they want the cargo to come back, so they just emulate what they saw. But I still had a bunch of questions. Who is John Frum? Where does he come into this story? And what makes this cult one of the world's strangest cults? Well, I was on Tanna filming one of the most insane videos I've ever filmed, where I climbed into their active volcano to get some lava for my lava lamp. And during this time, I'd been given the opportunity to meet the cult face to face. And little did I know at the time, there was a whole lot more to uncover about this strange cult than I ever imagined. So you join me at my accommodation with my volcano guide, Chris.
So we're going to go see a cult called John Frum, who worships America. Kind of. I'm kind of nervous. You give anything the name of a cult and it kind of makes you a little bit sketchy. Everyone here also, one thing I've noticed is they have a machete. Everyone just has a machete. How you doing?
Good, good.
Nice knife. Got a few questions, Chris. How do we organise going to see John Frum? Or how did you organise?
So the owner of this place knew a man in Newman. So going down that road.
So they all live in a village?
Yeah, there's one main village that we'll go up to, and it's quite a big village. I'm not sure exactly on size of it.
Okay.
But there's a few elders that we can go speak to. Now, I've got a feeling that the guy that we're going to see is called Mr. Lovin.
Mr. Lovin?
Yes.
First name Muck?
I hope so. So we're going to head up to their village, go chill with them for a bit. I've never met them before. So it's,
oh really?
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one for me as well.
First time meeting a cult together. Let's go.
I was still pretty nervous to turn up to their village. I still had a bunch of questions. And right on cue, the accommodation owner who sorted the whole thing walked in.
Kelton.
Zach, Kelton.
Kelton, yeah.
Nice to meet you, man.
Nice to meet you, Ben.
Anything we need to know, Kelton?
Sorry?
Anything we need to know about our friends?
About your friends?
John Frum?
John Frum.
Yeah. They chilling?
They might ask you a lot of money.
Okay. For what?
You know now they're buying, like now the cows, you want to make a big feast.
So they want a
So
big
they'll
celebration.
around 200,000. You don't tell them that you are filmers, no?
Okay.
Say that you are tourists, because
How much is a lot?
over 100,000. Yeah.
Okay, so we can get them down from 100,000. We get them down.
Yeah.
Okay. And how much is a cow?
8 times 150 to 200,000.
Okay. So that's like half a cow. That's crazy.
Would have rather just brought a cow.
Yeah, we should have brought a cow.
I definitely had more questions than answers at this stage, but there was no time to dwell. Our driver had just arrived to the accommodation and he was going to take us right to their village to meet them.
Do you know any of the John From?
Sorry?
Do you know any of them? Yeah, John From? Are they friends?
There was still a lot unknown about how they were going to react to our arrival. And from the limited research I did in the lead up to this video, they didn't seem to have a violent past. As we got closer, it was incredible to see how remotely they lived. Tanna itself is a remote island, and John From lived right through the rainforest at the base of Mount Yasur, one of the world's most active volcanoes. Now, our driver wasn't much of a chatterbox, so when we arrived and he said this, safe to say it freaks me out a bit.
So somebody died here,
Oh.
and last Thursday.
Last Thursday.
Last
It
Thursday.
was the last tourist that came through here.
A dog.
Hang on just a minute, guys. Who died? Why did he tell us just with the light?
What was the point there, like that people are sad?
Yeah, maybe. Not to walk through the village and be respectful. So
Well,
don't fuck things up.
I
So
don't-
we can't go to the volcano tomorrow.
okay, so be respectful because someone's died. Fair enough. That's fair. I can do that.
Be respectful because I don't want my ropes cut tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, I'm more worried about the next hour or two.
I actually found the volcano and putting ropes inside a volcano more predictable than the next hour.
Either way, we didn't have much time to gather our thoughts because two of the guys from the John From cult were approaching our vehicle.
Hey there, brother, you right? Hello. Ben. Nice to meet you.
Zach.
Right? Nice to meet you, Chris. Is it okay with my friend films a little bit? Is it okay?
Yeah. Hello.
We walked over to the group of people in this hut and definitely felt at first people weren't too sure of us. But two men came rushing over to us and it turns out the man on the left was the chief.
Chief.
Chris. Zach. I learned later on that the chief is actually in his 60s. Imagine being that ripped at 60. I mean, imagine being that ripped now, to be fair. The chief introduced us to his son who was going to give us a little tour of their village and tell us a bit more about John From.
Yes, son. Nice.
This is the village of Lamakara. Their setup was pretty basic, each family living in one of these huts with a central area for big celebrations and a large flagpole where the American flag is put up once a day. And at the back of the village was this huge banyan tree. In Vanuatu, banyan trees are a pretty spiritual place. John From was said to have emerged from that exact banyan tree discovered by Chief Isaac Wan. Strangely, the chief's son then took us to the grave of his grandfather, Chief Isaac, who was one of the key leaders in the John From movement, who had passed away in 2021.
What's the dog name?
Rascal.
Rascal. Is he a rascal?
Now, little did I know just how critical Chief Isaac Wan was to the entire John From movement, but I was going to find out soon enough. But for now, the chief's son told us about their Friday night tradition,
This is John Room.
Is you?
You sing? Yeah.
where the entire village gets together and sings songs about America and how John From will return.
Every Friday we do it there.
Wow.
We play until morning.
Yeah, yeah.
We start on
Until the morning?
Yeah, we start on 8 o'clock, finish at 6 o'clock.
And it's the kava that keeps you going, or?
Next on the tour, we were about to see the main John From building.
House headquarters.
Flight.
Okay.
Can we go and look at the flag? Yeah, we'll go look.
Making a preparation for this flag on this month, 15 February.
What flags go up here? Is it
France,
France?
England, US, Vanuatu.
And then in the celebration, what happens? Is it big dances or
Yeah. Like playing some skills concert.
backflips? Really? Can you do it? Really?
Now this is the biggest celebration for John From. In 1 week's time, this entire village would look like this. Dances, military routines, practicing the customs and willing John From to return with their riches. But I still didn't really know who John From was. But as we entered the building, I was about to find out.
Wow, that's nice. So door, what is the door?
Door and door. spirit side. This is
The good spirits or bad spirits? Good spirit.
flag here for US.
Oh, I see. Wow, that's big. Huge.
This from
US.
Wow. This was left here by the US Army? Or?
Yeah.
We have some uniforms. Cool. And these only get worn once a year?
15 February.
Once.
Once.
Yeah. What would you tell somebody that doesn't know much about John Frum? How would you explain?
Luckily, there was a printout explaining everything about John Frum.
It's all French. That's me counted out. But if you had to explain it to me, how would you explain John Frum?
John Frum, it's a spirit.
Spirit. Okay. And when did he visit the spirit?
This is when it came from all of this.
Okay. And so these spirits are in the volcano, or? Yeah. Okay.
From what I can understand, John Frum, otherwise known as John from America, was a spirit who visited Chief Isaac whilst daydreaming.
When you have a dream, not the kind of dream you have at night, but the dream you have when you're half awake, that's a daydream, and it's then that we receive our messages from John.
The message was clear: hold on to your custom and good things will come. Which seemed pretty random to me at the time, but I was missing a whole heap of context. And this is where the story gets absolutely wild. It turns out John Frum had visited Chief Isaac I in a daydream 2 years before the US military ever stepped foot on Tanna, meaning the locals had never seen any evidence of American people or precious cargo before deciding to literally dedicate everything they did to bringing it. This blew my mind. How could Chief Isaac know that the Americans were coming with all this precious cargo? Well, this is when Chief Isaac becomes one of the biggest dons I'd ever heard. It turns out in the 1800s, missionaries landed on Vanuatu way before the Americans and were perceived to spend nearly 100 years attempting to convert the entire country to Christianity.
And in the hopelessness of their existence, the missionary brings to them the light of the gospel and the hope of the more abundant life.
And let's just say they didn't exactly go about this in a peaceful way.
The Christianization of the island has been moving fast ahead. Any native who does not attend a Presbyterian service will be bound hand and foot and whipped in public.
The New Vanuatu had strong traditional values which they refer to as their custom, which included drinking kava, wearing traditional clothes and doing traditional dances. And it's safe to say those white people with zero rhythm wanted all that stuff gone. And as the tour continued, I noticed some writing on a wall.
Chief Nakoma, see Fara, struck prison for one.
What this translates to is, Chief, you were in prison, for what reason? And it turns out in those 100 years, missionaries often arrested chiefs of the villages, including Chief Isaac's father and grandfather, just to send a message. And this is the part of the story where everything began to click for me. Because after witnessing all this horrible stuff for the majority of his life, Chief Isaac I was about to pull a hell of a move which would undo all of the missionaries' hard work. Chief Isaac saw their culture and traditions under threat, his loved ones being thrown in jail for doing things they did proudly for hundreds of years. So Isaac, being the chief and the voice of authority in the village, tapped into storytelling. Isaac repeated John's message. He never told them to worship America, he told them to keep their customs strong. And if they did, John would come with gifts. So when the US military did arrive with Coca-Cola, radios, planes, and zero interest in converting anyone, They were proof that the prophecy was real. Chief Isaac used John Frum to not only preserve their tradition, but to undermine colonial control without ever firing a shot. I genuinely got goosebumps finding that out. This also makes sense as to the weird interaction I had whilst on the plane to Tanna with an actual missionary.
Missionary from 26 different countries here in Vanuatu.
Really?
So, we were speaking before about John Frum. Have you spoken to him? No. Because I think their religion is like almost like a rebellion of Christianity in a way. I think. Is that
It might be. I don't know much. This is like I've been to talk because I would go those like and meet with the missionaries and have like trainings and stuff. But I've never like served there. And now I'm going to like live there and stuff there. So I don't think I know who that is.
It seemed he did not want to get into it with me. But that still doesn't answer the question how Chief Isaac was able to predict the future so accurately. If you ask Chief Isaac, he'd say that John Frum came to him at the banyan tree after drinking some kava. But here's my understanding of it. Well, it's fair to say, as the chief, he was probably one of the most connected people around. And for years, people have been taken from Tanna to work on nearby islands. And some of these islands were some of the biggest US military bases before they moved to Tanna. Some of these workers brought back stories of Americans, precious cargo, boats the size of villages. And it's fair to say, Isaac probably used his imagination as to what those things could do to help his own people. Bravo, Isaac. It's brilliant. So after a pretty brief but massively mind-blowing tour of the village, we were lucky enough to get invited to take part in one of their customs.
Okay, we've just been invited to drink kava.
Oh, it's so tasty.
Tastes like mud, doesn't it?
Yeah. My favourite.
And this ended up being a pretty memorable part of the tour for some completely different reasons altogether.
Go to the Nakamal?
That pub.
Pub, yeah.
Now the men drink it in a sacred place called the Nakamal, which is basically their version of a pub. Now kava is a traditional drink often drank in ceremonies where they prepare a kava root. It's a drug that's supposed to make you more calm, and for John Frum it helps them connect with nature more and John Frum himself.
And how much kava do you drink?
Only two.
Two. That's enough.
That's it.
For me,
I was far away from home, far away from the hospital, and I was just about to try a drug with some guys I'd never met before. But hey ho, when in Rome.
how would you describe the feeling?
Peace, huh?
At peace?
Yeah.
Okay, I will leave here with some peace.
Yeah. So when we go up there, we don't allow to take photo.
Okay. Yeah. What is it? Is it like a precious place?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
We respect
Yeah,
nothing.
I'll put it down. Cool.
So we're all sat there in this Nakamal, the chief's son, some guys I'd never seen before. We start seeing them prepare the root, so they're like kind of cutting the skin off of it with this big machete, and they're scrubbing it with this sort of, I don't know, like stringy stuff. It's all looking good. Now I thought the next stage would be grinding the root down into its pulp, and I was right. And I thought that this was going to be done with some sort of machinery. I was very, very wrong.
We're not allowed to make video. No video.
A lot of the guys just start picking up the root and biting it. They're chewing it, and 10 minutes go by and I think, well, they've not given us one yet. I thought, fine, we're not doing the drink, but at least give me some to chew.
I like it when you hock it as well. Makes it sound way more appetizing. That like that.
That's like getting it from deep. That's from
That's where
the mucus.
It's like the creme on a coffee.
Oh.
Another 10 minutes go by, and that's when me and Chris have a bit of a realization. Because one by one, the guys start to spit it out.
Okay, so I just went to the toilet. I thought kava gets prepared with the root and it gets grinded through a machine and then put into the water and then you drink it. But here we've just realised they're all just chewing it and spitting it out, and that's what we have.
Now they're not spitting it onto the floor. They ain't wasting the stuff. They're spitting it onto a leaf. and what I can only describe as a grey hummus-like substance is just landing like a cowpat onto the leaf over and over again. And that's when we realise we're gonna have to drink this. This goes on genuinely for another half an hour. They built up a really big pile of the stuff. They then strain it through this sort of like cheesecloth stuff and add a load of water. And basically the stuff that was spat out is then rinsed through with water and turns into this sort of milky-like, browny, whitey drink.
What would you compare it to with taste?
Isn't it just like earthy?
General earth.
General earth flavour.
My friend, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, brother.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you for story and
Nice one.
thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
I'd argue that John Frum is my favourite cult in the world. You know what? You know what? I know exactly what to do. I love John Frum. Hope you've enjoyed this. Second channel video, first one in a while. Like and subscribe and all that good stuff, and catch you in the next one.